Hello, welcome back. I'm here with Will from Passion Capital. Will, can you give us a quick introduction?
Yeah, sure. So Will, one of the partners at Passion, rather bizarrely, a lifer in the VC space. So been doing this for 13 years now or something. But just love talking to founders and hearing all of the good, crazy and bad, crazy ideas that they're dedicating their life to. So yeah, really enjoy it.
Can you talk a bit more about Passion, size, stage, thesis, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so Passion was kind of really one of the early kind of more US Valley style seed funds here in Europe. So set up in London in 2009, ran one of the first kind of startup focused co-working spaces before WeWork was a thing in London. So many great startups that began life in White Bear Yard. First fund was from 2011. We've backed, I think, around 110 companies to date. We've had 5 fintech unicorns come out of that, and really just like first money investors into the founders that we back, and increasingly focused around fintech and risk and how AI is disrupting those spaces is where we spend most of our time at the moment.
Amazing. I think you joined a couple of years ago. I think you were at another VC before that. I think was it Conviction or Oxford Capital?
Yeah, it's a Conviction before that, and then probably the biggest chunk of my career was at Oxford Capital. So Passion's my kind of fourth fund hat. So did a really good stint at Oxford Capital at the start. Started there completely wet behind the ears. I think I'd have been absolutely useless to any founders I talked to, but learned by doing. And like VC's really an apprenticeship industry. There's nothing that quite prepares you for trying to do the context switching and be useful to founders. So seeing things go well and seeing things go catastrophically badly, I think is really quite formative for any investor to be useful around there. But got to the point where I deliberately wanted to go and see how other people did it. And so moved around a bit, but no, Passion's the place where it's the right fit for me. And I think that the bit in the market I can be most useful with is the kind of day zero. How do you help founders with tricky decisions like when's the right time to hire a salesperson? Probably later than they think. Kind of how do I get the first customers? How do I get people to pay for it? And I spend most of my time asking founders, right, you give me a big long list of things you're going to do. Which of those are you not going to do, so you can actually do the other ones well, rather than everything poorly?
Amazing. And I guess I want to ask 2 questions. Firstly, why Passion? And then secondly, why day zero? Why is that the area that you found your specialism or your love?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose kind of answering them the other way around, we're all a bit egotistical and we like to see the impact that we can have. And the opportunity to have impact on the trajectory of where a startup is going and being successful or not is bigger when it's so formative. And that's when startups are going through like the big pivots where they're like jumping from foot to foot and tackling a problem from all different angles. And if I can have a small impact in helping them get the right approach, not take the like obvious nice looking path that everybody's tried before them and hasn't worked out, and skip forwards to the next step in the toolkit, then it's really rewarding and you can see that impact. And that's something that Passion's got a demonstrable track record of doing, as well as I've been kind of drifting in that direction across my career. So the two kind of coincided in the right place. And one of the big things that we really believe at Passion, and kind of we can dive into this more, maybe like AI is disrupting VC as much as we're backing AI disruptive tooling. And the bit of VC I think is most interesting is the people-driven network end of VC, not the competition to reach out to people cold on LinkedIn and do more of a kind of formulaic approach to investing. And so that means you've got to be early. You've got to be before there's data for AI to care about.
That's super interesting. So you're saying, yeah, I guess when that comes to like sourcing deals, you're more interested in getting your deals from a network, from your community, I guess. We're seeing so many new tools crop up to help VCs source and kind of like gain alpha, whether that's like someone moves into stealth mode or someone moves into, I spoke to a partner last week at Chapter One who said that she went for lunch with an engineer at DeepMind, and all they did was update one of their old work statuses, and they just put an end date on one of their work, one of their places of employment, and within like 5 minutes there was like 30 automated emails from VCs in their inbox. Which is just like a crazy state of affairs.
Yeah, and it's crazy. And if you get one of those, if you put stealth founder or you put a little kind of robot emoji icon next to your name on LinkedIn to signify that you might be building or something, or you're thinking about doing a bit of consulting on the side and you set up a company on Company's House, any of these things can flag and set up a data chain, and you get automated inbound, you get call that kind of pulls you onto a call with an associate, and your inbox is flooded. And it's not a great experience for founders because they're just trying to like quietly feel their way in the world. They don't need all of that distraction on day zero unless they're doing it deliberately to try and kind of fish in the other founders. No, we take a very different approach. We're very network driven. I go and drink tea and coffee with interesting people, and I talk about the cool stuff that we've seen in fintech recently. And then the next time that they're chatting to someone in their network who's saying, I'm thinking about making the leap, I'm not sure, I'm building this. It's something completely different to what I've talked about. But Will, he's talking about cool stuff in fintech, you should go have a coffee with him. And sometimes these coffees are just like friendly advice, and sometimes it's bursting someone's bubble and saying, you do know there's like 5 other companies that have just raised big Series A and Series B rounds doing exactly that, and go, oh, no, hadn't realized that. And you kind of make sure that if they're going to take the leap, they're doing it for the right reason. But if you get to see people really early, when they're just looking for friendly advice, if you think they're great people, then we can be preemptive and push into rounds. I mean, we completed an investment this week. We had to wait 2 days longer than we should have to complete the investment because they had to set up a company to take the money from it and open a bank account.
So that's a perfect example where they hadn't done the things that would trigger the automated responses. Yeah. Interesting.
There was no company set up. There's nothing on LinkedIn. It's kind of, there's no data footprint there, but network wins in those cases because everyone goes and says, I'm thinking about doing this. Who do I want to talk to in my network? And then they'll talk to us and look, we're a small fund. We don't need to see every single deal in Europe. It'd be great if we did, but we're not going to, and we don't need to win. And the best tool that we've got in our arsenal at Passion is the fact that we've been doing this for 10, 15 years. We've got 110 startups we've backed, and all of those founders have other interesting future founders coming to them talking about what they're doing. And if we leave a good impression with them, then they'll send future founders our way. And about half of the deals that we back are directly warm intros from the existing founders in our portfolio.
It's amazing validation, right? Of I guess the impact and the relationship that you have with your founders if they're so willing to bring in their friends and other people who are building things. And what's it like investing? Because, to be investing in a company before they've even got a company is very early, right? Before they've officially got a company. What are you seeing at that kind of that level of the ecosystem across Europe? Is it becoming, a lot of the noises around it becoming very expensive, valuations are really high concentration, everybody's chasing the same deals. Are those things true? Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, and so look, we're trying to stay really disciplined around this, and there's certainly a bunch of like proper AI deals that are playing more into we're doing something novel in AI that are going and raising big chunks of money straight off the bat. And you can see, there have been kind of $14 million pre-seeds announced in the last couple of weeks in the fintech space, which is a crazy amount of money to be raising at that point. And honestly, the bit of advice that I give to all founders is that if you raise that crazy money, like you're raising on a hope and a story, there's a market norms around dilution. It means your valuation is going to be sky high. The biggest risk you run is that you get some early traction, you're through to the point where you got $500,000, $1 million in revenue run rate, you're going out to raise, and that's probably not enough for a Series A these days. It's a late seed at the next raise. And suddenly you've got metrics that your valuation can be on. And if your seed value, your pre-seed number was way up here and your metrics number is way down here, you've got a big problem. And VC is all about signaling and momentum. And if there's not that kind of uplift from the last round on the valuation side, it's really hard to pull the round together. So I think kind of founders often actually have more space to maneuver if they just start out with a really small amount of money that's just enough to run some traps, like show that there's demand there for the product. You can get like something that's tangible and looks and feels like the product you're going to end up building out there incredibly fast with vibe coding these days, but it still takes time to build a proper enterprise product that's SOC 2 compliant with single sign-on integrated and delivering some like genuine ROI and a pain point that the car kind of cold-nosed CFO that's got to sign off from this enterprise purchase is going to be, okay, I can see why we're spending $200,000 a year on this bit of software. Like you just can't do that overnight. And so there's still a chunk of the market where you can get founders will raise small amounts of money. They're going to be sensible about the valuation because they don't want to create an anchor around their neck for the next round. And they just want to go out and build something that tackles a real pain point. That's where we're playing. Not the rounds, the massive rounds that are designed for the mega funds and not the people who are going to try and like just build something with vibe coding, start monetizing immediately when there's no moat or defensibility there.
And what's that like at the moment in fintech? Like you're right, so many of those big rounds, there's crazy valuations, pre-traction, and also crazy revenue growth in like 3 weeks. A lot of that stuff is that kind of the AI application layer, but also, whatever, LLMs, infrastructure, the AI world. How is fintech, if at all, being impacted by the general state of the venture ecosystem at the moment?
Yeah, so I mean, look, we're broadly doing 2 types of deals. Old school fintech deals that they're building faster and better and they're using AI internally, but it's like it's a payments network at the end of the day, or something like that. And that's not impacted ginormously by AI other than be able to do more faster and better than you could before. The other bit, and where we probably spend more of our time thinking about, are the problems in fintech that haven't been solved by SaaS and haven't been solved pre-cloud, when you can get really precise about things like how do I classify tax on different invoices from different jurisdictions where there's loads of different rules, and I've got a custom internal workflow that I need to put these things into. And the answer pre-AI was junior accountants that look stuff up, and there's lots of context switching, there's different rules in different jurisdictions, there's precedent transactions from within your business about how you've treated them previously, there's feedback from the auditors about where you got it wrong and you had to reclassify stuff. That's a problem for AI. But you need to build something. You can't just throw the ChatGPT API at that and expect it to work. You need to build something really specific, like a specific agentic solution with the right kind of guardrails and evaluators in place. If you can solve that well, then a customer will turn around and go, I've also got this problem here next to it and this problem over here. And you suddenly find that there's a world that opens up. So those kind of tricky things SaaS hasn't solved that require high context. Those are the problems that we think are interesting in fintech, which is the same as anywhere else in vertical software, but we just know how to understand those in fintech. I'm sure there's similar problems in like HR or CRM or stuff.
And you're focused primarily on that sort of B2B fintech space.
Yeah, I'd say most of what we be doing would be in the B2B fintech space. I think for the most part, the tricky unsolved problems are on that B2B side. There are a few bits in consumer where I think AI could change things, and like wealth advice is a great example of that, and there's loads of people going after it. We just haven't found the right founder story round dynamics yet that's got us excited about that, and it's probably getting harder for us to get excited about it with every new round announcement that we see in that space.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely seems like a super hot space everybody's going after. What they call that, like generational wealth transfer, which I think is definitely really interesting. But yeah, okay, so you're looking for B2B fintech where there's areas where there's still complexity and there's still that real moat, I guess, that a lot of the AI companies don't have. I've seen a lot of people talk about even regulation as a moat in these days. So it's like, if you are a complex regulated fintech, that in itself is a huge moat compared to an AI bootstrapped vibe coded tool that could be doing way more revenue.
Yeah, and look, often we get founders coming in saying, we're tackling this problem, and here's how we can skirt around the outside of regulation and not need to go fully regulated until we're like 18 months, 2 years into the roadmap. And I think sometimes that's a mistake, like being afraid of the complexity, because you could just like barrel in with both feet and go, we're going to get regulation on day one, we're going to do this properly, and it's going to mean we get a better product, and we're more likely to succeed.
Yeah, and that's always what the founder of Revolut has said. He always regrets like not getting the banking license when he was small and early, because actually doing it when you're small and early is actually a lot less complex than trying to do it 3-4 years down
when
the
you've
line.
Got mess that you've got to reheat into the right shape. Now, it hasn't gone too poorly for them, but
no, but it's an interesting learning. It's like actually the regulation seems like something you want to push away, but actually you could doing it early can often be an advantage. I wanted to, you've been a VC now for 13 years. I guess, you've probably been through a couple cycles, it's called. You've also had a really interesting career moving from firms and, becoming a partner. I want to ask, what advice would you give to somebody today who wants to break into VC?
Yeah. So I think kind of look, most of the stuff that you get junior people to do can be taught. Like if you're going into like a Series A or Series B fund and they're asking you to do like, go and build out the competition slide, or do the market sizing, or rip apart the model and see if it's reasonable, do some cohort analysis, all of that. Anyone with a decent amount of horsepower can learn. I think the bit that when we're looking for people to join the team and thinking about that, it's the kind of more the EQ side. Can you judge people? can you get people to do interesting things for you and do favors? And so like just get out there and network and find interesting startups. And the difference between being like a great analyst and associate or being promoted up the ladder is finding deals and bringing them to the table and getting founders to want to take your money, because the best deals are often competitive, and you've got to convince founders that it's not just valuation and check size and stuff. It's who do I want to be on my board for the next 10 years?
And how do you go about that, both in your career, the various firms that you've worked at, but also at Passion? What is it that you say to founders? Look, come with me, come with us. This is what it'll mean.
Yeah. And so you can make the pitch to founders on the specific bits of value add you might do. Like, hey, we're going to help with recruitment, or we're going to help with how do you structure your sales funnel or stuff like that. But actually, the vast majority of your interactions with founders is when they're saying, this is what we've got up to this month. This is what's gone well and gone poorly. And then you're giving advice on, hey, you should tweak this, focus more here. I think you should put more effort here. Maybe it's time that we pause this or reassess. And I think that the best proxy for founders getting a good read on that is if you're super engaged and know what you're talking about in deal flow meetings. So when founders are coming and pitching to you, it's not just a one-way download where you're sucking information out of them. You're commenting and you're trying to ask those insightful questions on, well, why do you think that tactic of go-to-market will work? Have you thought about doing this instead of that? Why are you thinking about building the product out this way or that way? And I think that we're way more likely to have a founder thinking, I want to take their money, if they walk away from those initial conversations thinking, that was interesting. Something's made me pause for thought there. There's some stuff to consider. I might want to rejig that slide in the deck, other than, I slammed through all the slides. That went well, job done.
Yeah, okay. So it's about being challenging in a constructive way, right? And I guess that's the best way for the founder to realize that you know your stuff.
Yeah, and ultimately for a founder, they get to pick who they take money from, and they may be down to I can take money from this person or nobody at all in the business folds, but they still get to pick. And if they're a good founder with a strong proposition, they're going to have several, and they've run a good process, they'll get several funds wanting to come into the round, and they can be picking and choosing who do I want to have on the cap table. And at the early stage, the kind of conversation that I have with founders regularly when we're putting these pre-seed rounds together, and we're typically doing like half of a round that we go into. So there's a whole bunch of co-investors coming onto the cap table, other small funds and angel investors. And what I usually say to the founders is ignore check size. Just think about the next 12 months. Who is going to be the most useful to you in the next 12 months? Rank them and just keep going down the line until you've filled out the round size that you want to raise. And that person, we think, God, they're a really interesting person. They're going to be super valuable in 2 years' time when I'm going into this second product vertical, or when I'm expanding to the US and I want to put boots on the ground there. Great. Keep the relationship warm. Go back to them then and get the value from them then. But you want to focus on who's going to move the needle for you in the next 12 months so that you can go out and raise the next round, or you can get to break even, or you can get product into market that much faster, and try and get the most helpful people onto the cap table. If you run out of helpful people, get people who won't be damaging. If you run out of people who won't be damaging, then get the money, and you're going to have to work harder with it.
And so that's great advice for founders who are getting to choose, right? Who have got to the point where they've got money, they've got offers on the table, they've got great investors. What about someone who's just starting off the process? What would be your top 1, 2, 3 tips of somebody who is about to kick off a fundraising process? What's the best way that they can go about it?
Yeah. So the key's in the word process there. So this, you look at all of the stats that people share and you look at founder stories about fundraising, it's going to be all of your life. And so and the goal is that you should be in basically back-to-back VC calls for 2 or 3 weeks. And so you're going to need to do your research ahead of time. You're going to need to have your list of who you want to talk to. You're going to need to prime your network to make sure that the intros go out at the right time. But it's a battle. Go into this with a plan, be structured about it, think about what your funnel looks like. We do this meeting with me doing the initial prep, and then I'm going to send over a loom with some product demo afterwards. I'm going to protect my co-founder CTO till later on in the process so that they're actually doing some building and stuff while I'm completely distracted from running the business. And the great thing about VC is that VCs are discoverable. We all want to be found by founders. And if you go and talk to your network and talk to other founders, by and large, founders are pretty happy to say, oh, these are the great angels I've got on my cap table. And other angels are great at saying, and these are the other angels I've co-invested alongside. So work the network, but don't start in dribs and drabs. Try and do it like a campaign in one go, because especially when you're a pre-seed kind of founder or really early stage founder and you don't know if this is really going to work or not, and you it's really hard if the first time sheet you get is from someone where you've got kind of a middling appetite for having them on your cap table. It's incredibly hard to say no to that money and say, no, I'm going to roll the dice. I'm going to keep fundraising so I think I can find someone better to go on board. So you don't want to go and start with a couple of easy hit conversations and then get a term sheet from a middling person out there when you're like, well, I wanted these people all along and I never quite got around to reaching out to them, or never found the node in the network to get that introduction from.
Okay. So keep it must be such a time-consuming process. 2 to 3 weeks back to back. You've got to nail it, get it done in that time, and I guess that creates a lot of the hype and the excitement, right? If you've got back-to-back meetings. And VCs share deal flow with each other all the time. Like, I'm making intros to other VCs saying, hey, here's a deal that we're really excited about. Do you want to come in and do the round with us? So if people get excited, the word will go around and you'll get that bit of kind of hype around it. And as soon as someone's committed, you can start leaning on them to get intros and say, who do you think would be the right person to have around the table here? And like, intros are currency for me. So if you're a cool founder and I'm excited about what you're building and you're giving me the opportunity to go and show that to a bunch of other VCs, fantastic, because I know that I'll get that back in a couple of months' time when they're seeing something else interesting that I haven't seen yet. Yeah, got it. Okay, so you actively want to share the deals, right? You want,
The only caveat that I put is that so I think there's two ways that VCs approach deal sharing. They either do it really early in the funnel, hey, here's someone we just met, we haven't formed a full opinion, but it looks cool, do you want an intro? Or it's, we're doing it on an intro. Well, I always feel that I have to avoid saying to, like, doing an intro midway through the process to find a way we're pretty excited about it, and then if I don't end up doing the deal, I feel I've got to then update everyone and say, oh, that intro I made, we didn't actually end up investing because of X, Y, Z, because it poisons those intros. So I'll either do it really early or really late in the process.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. You either want to be unaware if you're going to go all in or not, like completely unaware, but it seems interesting, or you're like, this is a hell yes from us. We're going in, come in with us. Super interesting. Well, look, Will, we're out of time, but that's been such a great chat. Thank you so much for joining me. Super interesting. I started my kind of content journey all about fintech. I love speaking to fintech people. It's just like one of London's like strongest suits, and there's still so much left on the table, it feels, of like amazing companies that can still be built. Thank you for taking the time.
Glad to be here. Really enjoyed it.
Amazing. Thank you.